Welcome to Cantus, the podcast by Aurelio Porfiri, dedicated to the beauty of liturgy and sacred music. Join us as we explore the rich traditions, profound meanings, and heavenly harmonies that elevate the spirit and deepen our connection to the divine.
Hello everyone to our Cantus podcast. I am Aurelio Porfiri. Today I am very happy to have as a guest my friend and Professor Guido Milanese. Professor Guido Milanese is a musicologist and he is also professor at the Università Cattolica in Milan and at the Italian, the University of Svizzera Italiana. So thank you, Professor Milanese, for your participation.
Thank you. It's always a great pleasure and a great honor for me to cooperate with your broadcastings and with your books sometimes.
Yes, because I have to mention that me, Professor Milanese, and Bishop Athanasius Schneider, we wrote a book together that is called "When the Hearts Went Still: The Decline of Catholic Sacred Music," and this is a book that will be available in English in November 2024, published by Sophia Institute Press. So this is a book that is really, I think, a quite different book from all other books that were written on sacred music, because it deals with the problems that sacred music have in the recent decades. So I really hope that you will be able to read it and to reflect on the messages that this book want to convey. Indeed, the subtitle of the book is "The Tragic Decline of Catholic Sacred Music." We call it tragic. So, Professor Milanese, I want to ask you why you accept to write this book on what we call the tragic decline of Catholic sacred music.
Well, that's a good question indeed, for several reasons, I would say. The first point is that I have been working in this area for decades now. When I was a child, I was educated in my town in northern Italy by a great cardinal of the Catholic Church of last century, who was Cardinal Giuseppe Siri, and he was not a traditionalist. He was a very deeply traditional man, and it is not the same thing indeed. He educated us to do what we can to have not only a decent liturgy and music, but something that glorifies God. He always told us, and he wrote an article about this, saying that liturgy is not, and sacred music as part of liturgy, is not, morally speaking, the highest human activity. There are other human activities that can be regarded as the highest points of man in his temporal life. But liturgy is the highest activity of man from the point of view of dignity and significance. And for that, we were educated so many years ago in an environment where liturgy was always taken very seriously, was not a sort of pastime with friends. And for this is the first point. Music is, as we read in the proceedings of Second Vatican Council, music is a part of liturgy, is not something added to liturgy. It is part of liturgy as such, as the readings, as the gestures of the priests, and so on. And this is the first point. I have been struggling for so many years for this. And the second reason is that I have a personal experience as a church musician. And the third, last but not the least, of course, is the high quality of the other authors. So I've been very, very deeply honored to add my name to a book with Bishop Schneider's name, and of course also with your name,
Thank you, Paul.
because it's not a matter only of musicology, but also of musical activity in practical life.
Yes, and I want to remind our listeners that the book will be available in November, but you can already pre-order the book on Amazon.com. So you can pre-order now, so you don't forget, because this will be really a groundbreaking book, I can really say, because it deal with really uh, the root of the roots, I would say, of the problem. And I want to uh, mention to you, because we are speaking now to a English speaking audience, and one of the huge question is, of course, the question of the uh, open door to commercial like music in the liturgy, that I think is a sort of blasphemy, but for many people, including priests, now seems something quite normal. So don't you think that even priests or bishops that think that having commercial type of music in the liturgy is something really weird?
Um, yes, indeed, because, well, music can be commercial without being negative for liturgy. For example, in the past, we had great musicians who were paid to write church music. The
Yeah,
problem
of
is,
course.
of course, that nowadays commercial music is a sort of synonymous for music without real qualities. And commercial music is something that can be used in different environments with success, and why not? But the problem is to quote, as I'm afraid I have to do several times during our talk, to quote Ratzinger, the problem is that liturgy is not a part of everyday life, as taking a tea with a friend, or have a walk with my daughter. It's another part, and it's a moment in one's life where everything must be at the level required. And of course, commercial music nowadays is not suitable for this kind of use. Unfortunately, we are in a to put it this way, we are so used to this kind of musical language that it is very hard for not only for a general audience but also for professionals. It's very hard to accept a different language, a higher language. It's a, in a sense, it's a parallel to the problem of translations of texts from Latin. There was a great debate during the Ratzinger age. There was a debate about the translations from Latin to English in the liturgy. For the most typical example was Dominus Vobiscum, translated not the Lord be with you, but the Lord be with your spirit, or with thy spirit, if you prefer. And of course, this was a change of language, a higher level of language, because Lord be with you is something like good morning, people, how are you going today? But the Lord be with your spirit is higher level. And so this is, I think, is a good parallel for musical language.
I want to make some remarks on what you say. Of course, liturgical music can be commercialized. This was always the Renaissance composer. They, of course, sell their music, and this was part of also of their salaries, their living. But what I intend for commercial music is not this, but is the music that are inspired from the kind of music that can be also high level commercial music. Because, for example, if we talk of the music of Michael Jackson or Celine Dion, this is high level commercial music in the sense that, of course, they do very well what they are doing, and this is why they are very successful. But the value that are connected with this kind of music cannot be transferred in the church, because these are value that for the most part are anti-Christian. So is like the sexuality, very open sexuality, all the value of the word. This is why this music, even if you put some so-called religious words, but recall these values of the word.
Yes, this is a point, because you're perfectly right. There is a good commercial music, very well written, and so on. But what happens is that this music keeps the human experience of those who listen to this music, keeps it at a very low level, doesn't open a door towards a richer view of human experience and of human life. This is a point. But if you think a little about it, all the task of liturgy, of course, is give glory to God, but make it possible to those who take part in a ceremony to open this door, so perceive that human life is not confined only to everyday experience, that there is a richer human life. This is the task of liturgy insofar as human experience is concerned, naturally. But the ground of liturgy and of sacred music being, of course, the glory of God. But for human experience, we must be helped by music to open our mind to a richer vision of what a human being is. Otherwise, it is completely useless, and also, as you say, maybe also negative, because because it's not only many years ago there was a sort of sport to track the satanic influences in this music. This can be also true, but besides this very extreme instances, there is also the materialistic reduction of this music, that this music transfers to human experience, and this is not what we need in a religious and liturgical environment.
I want to mention to you a little fact. Years ago, when I was one of the organists of St. Peter Basilica, I played for a wedding, and this wedding was between an American black woman and an Italian man, and they ask if they can sing themselves, because they were performers, so they sing well. If they can sing the prayer, that is a song by Andrea Bocelli and Celine Dion. Uh, Also, a song that has a text that is quite nice, but we said to them that that was not possible, because the music was a music that was uh, performed really according to the parameters of commercial music. So even if the words were somehow acceptable, but the music was not, and so we came with a compromise, and they performed the song after the mass was ended, and I have to say they sing it quite well. I mean, they were really singers, so
Mm.
it was not that the problem. But I think that sometimes the people cannot understand anymore the difference between what is commercial and what is liturgical. And I have to say, because I have experience of the United States, because between 1999 and 2008, I was the director of music of the American Church here in Rome of Santa Susanna, is that sometimes the 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 people don't really understand what is liturgical and what is not. And I think this is one of the reason behind the tragic decline of Catholic sacred music.
Oh, yes, certainly. I think that our listeners cannot see that, could not see that I was smiling when you were talking about this wedding, because many years ago, at the wedding of my wife with me, we performed Machot, Messe Notre Dame, and it was very liturgical indeed, and of course proper in Gregorian chant. But the problem is, of course, people, but so the faithful. But the real problem is that faithful must be educated. They must receive an education, and the education in the church, in the Catholic Church particularly, must have a sort of hierarchy. So the first must be the bishops, the priests, and then the faithful, because we are not a democracy, you know. So also in education, there must be an order. And naturally, if a bishop is not able to educate his flock, what happens is that people remain in the darkness, and even more than darkness, in the triviality of everyday experience. And they will never be able to open themselves, as I was mentioning before. The problem is clearly that if priests themselves do not perceive this crucial role of liturgy and of sacred music, how can they help the faithful to open their mind?
Yeah, and this is exactly my question, that I was going to ask you. Because you speak about the faithful, but what uh, uh, the faithful have to be educated. But what if the priest, as in many cases today, are not educated themselves? So how can they educate the faithful? They are blind, they guide other blind in a certain way, as the gospel say. So that's really the tragedy. And I want to go even back. What the bishop that are not educated, how they can educate their priest that should educate the faithful? So it's really dramatic, the situation.
Yes, dramatic for sure, but also a tragedy indeed. But I think that um, since I mentioned at the beginning of this talk that I was educated in a traditional environment, but not in a sort of a veneration of tradition as a ghost. I think that as Ratzinger um, um, was saying, I would say, even many years before being a pope, his first book is more than 40 years ago. The book about the need of a new understanding of liturgy. It was of 1981, 1982. So read seriously the proceedings of Vatican II. I think it's very simple. Read seriously. And for example, there is an order in Vatican II saying that priests must study music in during their studies in the seminar. Priests must study Latin, must study Gregorian chant, and this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen. For example, no one knows that theoretically priests are bound to read or chant the divine office in Latin. Only in particular cases they can obtain a special permission to use local languages. But if we take Vatican II seriously, many of the problems that we are facing now should be solved in a matter of a few years. The problem is that this will not probably happen.
Yes, unfortunately, I think this will not happen, at least in the short in a short time. But of course, we have to be hopeful, and I want to invite our listeners to pre-order our book, When the Hearts Went Still. You can find it in Amazon.com, already available for pre-order. I want to thank Professor Guido Milanese for his participation and for his nice and important insights. And I want to thank also our listener. And if you are not done it already, I hope you can subscribe to our newsletter, cantus.substack.com. Thank you, Professor Milanese, for your participation.
Thank you, naturally, on my turn.
Thank you very much to everyone, and I will see you at our next podcast. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Cantus. If you enjoyed our exploration of liturgy and sacred music, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter at cantus.substack.com for exclusive content and updates. Don't forget to join our Telegram channel by Aurelio Porfiri for more insights and discussions. You can find Aurelio's books on www.amazon.com and at your local bookshops. Stay connected, stay inspired, and continue to celebrate the divine harmonies that enrich our lives. See you in the next episode.